It's time for the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network. 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com. The Checkered Flag is presented by Mahaska, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, Sigourney Body Shop, Danny's Auto Supply, Quality Car Wash, Morton Buildings, Motor Inn Auto Group of Knoxville, Vanderlinden Detailing, Schroeder Alignment and Towing, Vital Ministries, RJ Performance, and Vanderbeek Truck Accessories. It's time for the Checkered Flag on your station for racing. 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com.
World of Outlaws who were there last weekend. Also going to be talking to Jared Thompson and Mark Schuring, two figure eight competitors from around the area. We'll talk to a couple of sport mod drivers, Scott and Danny Brow, a couple of brothers. We'll have them here to wrap up the show later on this evening. Once again, we are at the Oskaloosa Pizza Ranch, and until 7:30 tonight, you can check out a fantastic buffet. Also, you can order whatever you want here. When you get here, it's going to be a fantastic night, as always, here at the Oskaloosa Pizza Ranch for the Checkered Flag. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right into the recaps from last week. We had a full week of racing. Eddyville Raceway Park, Southern Iowa Speedway, and Oskaloosa. Knoxville Raceway had 2 nights of action. Also had the T-Bone Memorial Demolition Derby at the Southern Iowa Speedway over the weekend. And we'll be talking all things of all 4 of those. So let's go ahead and dive right in what happened last Wednesday at the Southern Iowa Speedway.
It was another fantastic Wednesday night of action last week at the Southern Iowa Speedway. Lately, the question at the Southern Iowa Speedway has been, can anybody beat Shannon Anderson in the hobby stocks? Edel Lawn Care, Cindy Drawson Independent Auto each put up $100, making a $300 bounty to beat Anderson. A total of 63 cars signed in to tame the Monster Half Mile on the Supreme Lawn and Landscape Night at the races. Feature winners of the night were Daniel Fellows in the Sport Compacts, Nathan Wood in the Stock Cars, Ethan Broxma in the Sport Mods, Caden Carter in the Modifieds, and Shannon Anderson again in the hobby stocks. First feature of the night was the 10-lap Kelly-style State Farm IMCA Sport Compacts feature. 9 cars had signed in to race, but 4 experienced issues early in the night, meaning only 5 cars made it to the call. Daniel Fellows missed last week after winning the first 3 nights and grabbed the top spot early and never looked back, going on to take his 4th win at Oski ahead of Bellevue, Nebraska's Denny Berghan Jr. Levi Heath finished 3rd, last week's winner Brandon Housley was 4th, and Brad Havel was 5th. Budweiser IMCA Stock Cars 18-lap feature was next to roll onto the speedway, and it was a pair of former hobby stock drivers, Danny Thrasher and Dustin Griffiths, leading the field of the green. Griffiths took the lead on lap 1 on the outside, but Thrasher did not go away. Meanwhile, Nathan Wood, Derek Agee, Todd Reitzler, and Mike Hughes are battling right behind the leaders. Griffiths saw Agee and Thrasher make it a 3-car battle for the lead, coming to the line to complete lap 2. Agee had his night come to an end shortly after as he found himself against the wall in turn 1. Griffiths held on to the top spot until Nathan Wood worked his way up to take the top spot on lap 6. Griffiths took it back on lap 7. Wood was determined to take the top spot back from Griffiths, and he did exactly that on lap 8. Wood becomes the first repeat winner in the stock cars at Southern Iowa Speedway in 2017. Mike Hughes finished in the runner-up position ahead of Griffiths. Todd Reitzler got another top 5, finishing 4th, and Greg Gill finished 5th. Before a single lap scored in the Oskaloosa True Value IMCA Sport Mods 16-lap feature, the caution came out when Jason McDaniel spun in turn 4 after contact from Curtis Vanderwall, sending both cars to the tail. Ethan Broxma, youngster from Newton, started on the pole, and he took advantage by grabbing the top spot and not looking back. Broxma goes on to take the win, becoming the 3rd different winner this year. Brett Lowry, making his first appearance of the season, moved up 8 spots to finish 2nd. Curtis Vanderwall worked his way up to 3rd. Carter Vandenberg and Logan Anderson finished 4th and 5th, respectively. The Musco Lighting IMCA Modified 16-lap feature saw a pair of Keswick drivers, Andrew Schroeder and points leader Colt Mather, leading the field to the green flag. Mather jumped out to the lead, but Caden Carter, who missed the heat race, forcing him to start at the tail, was working his way through the field. Carter caught Mather and began battling for the lead on lap 3. Carter slipped on by shortly after and went on to take his 3rd win in a row in the Modifieds. Mather, Derek Stewart, Andrew Schroeder, and Josh Starr rounded out the top 5. The final feature of the night was the KBOE Radio Mahaska IMCA Hobby Stocks 15-lap feature. Steve Allen and Bradley Graham led the field, but it was Jamie Songer that grabbed the top spot. Songer and Aaron Martin started battling for the top spot on lap 3. On lap 4, Martin took the lead away. Martin looked comfortable out front, but Shannon Anderson was clawing his way through the field from his 10th place starting spot. Martin saw Anderson sneak on the inside after he left the door open in turn 3 on lap 10. Anderson cruised on to remain perfect, 5 for 5 in Oskaloosa. Martin held on for second ahead of Songer, Nathan Ballard, and Mike Kincaid. Next Wednesday night is Craig Ford night at the races with all 5 IMCA divisions: IMCA Modifieds, IMCA Stock Cars, IMCA Sport Mods, IMCA Hobby Stocks, and IMCA Sport Compacts. Hot laps begin at 7 p.m. The racing action will be at 7:30 p.m. You can check out more information by going to oskispeedway.com or like Southern Iowa Speedway every Wednesday night on Facebook. Our coverage begins with the Southern Iowa Speedway pre-race show at 6 p.m. on Wednesday with Jeremy Fox on the call. It was a great weekend for the sprint cars at Knoxville Raceway on both Friday and Saturday last week. Grass Valley, California's Brad Sweet kept his Casey Kane racing number 49 up front all night long in the first night of the Brownells Big Guns Bash Friday with the World of Outlaws at Knoxville Raceway. Brad led all 25 laps to capture his second career feature win in Knoxville, as well as the $10,000 top prize. Cade Higday scored his second win of the season in the 305 sprint car class. It was his 4th career victory there. On Saturday, it was a busy night, of course, as well, as Donnie Schatz led flag to flag to claim the 25-lap World of Outlaws feature to claim the finale of the Brownells Big Guns Bash at the Knoxville Raceway Saturday. The Fargo, North Dakota driver earned $10,000 for his 25th win at the sprint car capital of the world. The victory tied him for 10th on the all-time list at Knoxville with 2-time track champion Skip Jackson. Nate Van Haften avoided disaster and used a restart to make his winning pass in the 360 sprint action. Schatz would claim the early lead in the World of Outlaws main event ahead of Friday night's winner Brad Sweet and David Gravel. The caution flew 4 laps in for Dakota Hendrickson, who came to rest in turn 4. Schatz led Sweet, Gravel, Darren Pittman, and Logan Schuhart back to the green. Ian Madsen jumped from 6th to 4th at that point, while Sweet and Gravel battled for the second spot. 8 laps were in the books when an 11th running Jason Side spun in turn number 1. Gravel entered the turn 1 low on the restart and came out with the runner-up spot. Sweet was under pressure from Madsen for 3rd, and the two would exchange the spot on consecutive laps. By lap 15, Schatz was back in traffic and had no real challenges the rest of the way. The battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th was intense, however, with Gravel, Sweet, and Madsen all vying for position. Brian Brown entered the top 5 with 3 to go. Meanwhile, up front, Schatz would sail to the checkers ahead of Gravel, Sweet, Madsen, and Brown. Hard charger Shane Stewart grabbed 6th on the last lap, while Schuchart, Pittman, Danny Lasowski, and Jason Johnson rounded out the top 10. Gravel and Schatz set quick time in their respective groups and won their heats. Linton Jeffrey and Schuchart were the other heat winners, while Sweet claimed the dash. Brooke Tatnell won the B-main. Despite the weather being extremely hot and wind howling all day long, the track was in impeccable condition, yielding multiple groups. Sawyer Phillips jumped out from his front row outside starting spot to lead early in the 18-lap 360 feature. Joe Beaver and Nate Van Haften followed. Van Haften used his patented low side to jet by Beaver for 2nd on lap 3. Points leader Clinton Garner entered the top 5 on lap 4. By lap 6, the leaders were in traffic. The race took a serious turn 8 laps in. When Ben Woods flipped on the backstretch, Phillips slowed. Van Haften barely saw the leader check up in time and spun to avoid contact. Garner wasn't as fortunate. His car ended up sideways above the turn 3 cushion and went airborne. Although the car didn't flip, he sustained enough damage to be sidelined. Phillips would lead Van Haften, Beaver, Matt Morrow, and John Egan back to green. Van Haften again used the low side to get by Phillips and take command. Beaver and Morrow battled side by side for several laps for 3rd, with Morrow prevailing on lap 12. Egan would follow him into 4th on lap 13. Phillips would mount a late charge at the leader, but settle for 2nd behind Van Haften, who claimed his 6th career 360 feature in Knoxville. Morrow ended 3rd ahead of Egan and Beaver. Jamie Ball, Ryan Giles, Calvin Landis, Devin Klein, and Chris Martin completed the top 10. Landis set quick time over the field, while Tom Lins, Phillips, and Garner were heat winners. Next Saturday night on June 17th, it's Fanwall Equipment and Future Stars Night. All 3 sprint car classes will be in action. For more information, you can visit KnoxvilleRaceway.com. Appreciations to Bill Wright for getting us the recaps. It was an exciting weekend at the T-Bone Memorial Demolition Derby put on by Lunatic Promotions, an outstanding event with plenty of fantastic action and almost no seats available in the house for either night. An unbelievable turnout, as usual, for the T-Bone Memorial Demolition Derby. Let's go ahead and get to the finishes for each and every class. In the mowers, first place went to Albia's Drake McKim. Albia swept the top three, actually, with Troy Cormany finishing in second and Trent McKim finishing in third, all of Albia. In the compact trucks, first place went to Atoma's Rob Tomlin. He was followed by second place Nick Summers of Albia, and Andrew Coe of Albia finished in third. In the compact three-man team, the feature had first place going to Justin Oylar, Tyler Smith, and Nick Gray. Second place went to Tyler Anderson, Dylan Albright, and Caleb Lynn. And third place went to the team of Andrew Gamble, Greg Ford, and James Essery. The 80 newer no welds went first place to Nathan Arnold, with second place to Justin Woods, and Rob Tomlin finishing in third. And the two-man team feature included first place for Brandon Johnson and Mike Worth, second place to Spencer Harrington and Cole Matthews, and third place went to Michael Garnett and Curtis Cochran. Hall of Fame inductees for the weekend included Jimmy Oldham, Tony Atchison, Mark Witt, and Kevin Hope. An unbelievable weekend. Big thanks to Steve Turlau for helping getting us going, getting us the results, and allowing us to film some great footage from what was another fantastic Demolition Derby put on by Lunatic Promotions. Eddyville Raceway Park also had some fantastic action as usual on the weekend. And some of the results include, in the no box category, it was Indianola's Bob Bash getting first place over Bill Randall of Richland, Iowa. And the Nostalgia Superstock over the weekend, Sean Johnston of Millstead, Illinois was the winner, followed by Carroll Stream, Illinois' Bill Sheely. In the foot brake class, Andy Decker of Corridon got the win, followed by Dean Kanslar of Eddyville. In Nostalgia 1, it was Donnie Ellison of Washington, Iowa, getting the win over Atoma's Rick Anderson. In Nostalgia 2, it was Dick Zeisen of Guthrie Center, defeating Coatesville, Missouri's Richard Lasley. In the trophy class, it was Chris Quinn of Atoma winning, followed by Chance Williams of What Cheer. In the Midwest Pro Outlaw, Rusty Kramer of Pella got the win over Dan DeVore of Monroe. Finally, in this Nostalgia Consolation bracket, Mark Lambert was the winner, and he was followed in second place by Dean Cancelar.
As you can see, plenty of great action from around our listening area in local racing last week. Of course, we have a full week coming up this week once again. But what was special about last week, we had 2 nights of Knoxville racing, including the World of Outlaws. We'll talk to Bill McCroskey in just a little bit about that. But as part of the World of Outlaws being their race sponsor, Brownells in Grinnell hosted a little shoot-off competition in Grinnell. Our own Titus Litzering has a story.
Typically, you'd find these drivers out on the track, but Thursday, KBOE found them at Brownell's Big Springs Gun Range. Instead of getting behind a steering wheel, though, Brownell's, the world's largest supplier of firearm accessories, gun parts, and sponsor of this week's Knoxville races, decided to have the Knoxville drivers, Brian Brown, Kerry Madsen, and Logan Schuhart, get behind some of Brownell's firearms to show who was the better marksman. These men competed amongst some other Knoxville crew as well as 2 of Brownell's own, male competitor Yeti and female competitor YOLO, in a competition that would be split up into 3 events. The competitors divided up into 5 teams of 2 and picked their names. The first event in line was a competitive trap shooting contest using 12-gauge and 20-gauge shotguns. The teams each had one partner line up on the trap shooting marks, and from there, one at a time, each competitor yelled pull and fired at a clay pigeon in the air, getting 1 point for hitting the clay pigeon. They would fire 5 rounds, then rotate to their right and repeat the process until firing a total of 25 rounds. Only 4 teams could go at a time, so the last team wrapped up their round together. After the first round, the race for Best Marksman team was close. The competitors then moved down the hill for the next event, pistol races. In this event, one person would compete head-to-head against a person from another team. The race would involve the competitors shooting down 6 plates and then a metal man. The shooter who knocked down all 6 plates and the metal man first would win a point for their team. Even with the sun beating down on these shooters, the contest was intense and came down to the last shot a few times. With the scores close, the competitors would have one final chance to prove who was the better marksman. The last round consisted of a .50 caliber rifle and shooting shaving cream cans. Competitors had 30 seconds to fire as many rounds as they could. For each can hit, they would receive 10 points. Powerful shots sent cans into the air, dirt flying, and shaving cream everywhere. As the dust settled and the points were tallied, Logan Schuhart and Raceway Competition Director John McCoy were crowned the champions, receiving a prize from Brownells. The other shooters didn't go home empty-handed, though. They all received gun sleeves from Brownells as well. For more information, check us out on YouTube. Just search No Coast Network and at KBOEradio.com. For the No Coast Network, I'm Titus Letzring.
Fun story there. Thanks to Kendra at Knoxville Raceway for giving us the heads up to go and hang out with the guys there at the Brownell shooting range. Fun day as well. Great racing as we saw. And the first thing we're going to talk about after the break is that racing in Knoxville from last week, as Bill McCroskey will be joining us to talk sprint cars. When we return, it's the Checkered Flag Show right here on the No Coast Network.
Spring is here, and so is racing season. Every race car driver knows how important it is to take care of their car. At Oskaloosa's Quality Car Wash, it's more than just a name. It's what they offer. The touchless car wash has no brushes and won't leave any scratches. There are 4 options to choose from, and all will leave your car looking spotless. Quality Car Wash is located at 1101 A Avenue West in Oskaloosa. Race in to Oskaloosa's Quality Car Wash today.
Sigourney Body Shop is the intelligent choice. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that great service and reasonable prices are the reason Sigourney Body Shop is the #1 body shop in the Sigourney area. They do auto and truck collision repairs, glass replacement, body and paint work, free at-home estimates, are complete service specialists, and they offer pickup and delivery and a loaner car. Sigourney Body Shop at 210 Clark Street in Sigourney, or call 641-622-2022. Contact Jim Vavra with Morton Buildings when you want to build something that lasts. Jim grew up in New Sharon and currently lives in Oskaloosa. He has 30 years of sales and marketing experience, with 4 of those years focused on selling confinement buildings. Jim looks forward to meeting you to discuss your new farm storage, insulated workshop, hobby building, and more. Call Jim Vavra with Morton Buildings at 641-919-2838. Morton Buildings, America's leader in post-frame construction.
Welcome back in. We are live here from the Oskaloosa Pizza Ranch. Still some time for you to come in and enjoy a fantastic all-you-can-eat buffet. Only $10, by the way. You can't beat that deal. Well, we're going to talk sprint cars here. I'm joined by our old friend Bill McCroskey. Bill, thanks so much for joining us again.
You bet, Emery. Glad to be here.
Last week, World of Outlaws were there. It seems like every week the last month or so, Knoxville's had a special night for one reason or another. Take me through Friday night. I know racing doesn't typically happen on Fridays at Knoxville, but what did you see on the first wave of the Outlaws, and I think it was the 305s in action on Friday?
Right. Friday night it was a Brownells from Grinnell Big Guns Bash, and Saturday night was too. But Friday night, both nights were brutal weather conditions to try to do a dirt track race, and it was 40. I think they had 42 410 cars, World Outlaw cars, on Friday night, and I think mid-20s on the 305s. Brad Sweet from Grass Valley, California, came out on top on Friday night, and it's kind of like a preliminary night type thing. But in the 305s, our friend Cade Higday won another one, and it was a good show. Both events went off pretty much without a hitch. Not a lot of red flags, yellow flags, or whatever, and over and done with it at a decent hour. So again, it was just a brutal racetrack. Not for the competitors, just to try to make it so it wasn't like asphalt.
Right, and that's when we were talking for the first 3 or 4 times you were on the show, it just seemed like it was yellow after yellow and red after red. It was hard to get a full race in, without multiple flags that were slowing it down. It didn't seem like it was the case. Do you think the weather had anything to do with that? Because, as you mentioned, it was very dry out there.
Well, first of all, you had 2 classes of cars instead of 3, so the odds are down there. And quite frankly, the World Outlaws are professionals, and that's nothing against the other classes. It's just those guys race 80, 90 times a year just in the United States. A lot of them go to Australia, so it's the difference between guys that race 20 times a year and guys that race 90 times a year. So they tend to have sharper reflexes and just know how to avoid a lot of those situations.
When the World of Outlaws obviously took out the 410s instead of having all 3 classes on night, which we'll get back to this week, but what have you seen from those 2 smaller classes from the Knoxville regulars in terms of the season standings, is there any surprises from some of the drivers that have been able to run up front on both of those smaller classes?
Well, probably. I don't. It's not necessarily a surprise, but Kevin Hetrick is from Gladstone, Illinois, is leading the 305 points right now, and that's interesting. You bring that up because we're only about 9 races left in the points part of the season for the 3 classes, the 410s, the 360s, and the 305s. So it's starting to shake out. I mean, there's probably 5 guys that are in the 305 points that have, distinct chance of winning that class. Young Ryan Levitt, Cade Higday. So I think you could see any of those 3 or 5 win the points championship. It just kind of the luck of the Irish, whatever happens,
In those 305s, is there any one particular guy? You talk about Hetrick, who's won a few times already, Higday, fresh off a couple of wins. Is there any one guy that you say would be the odds-on favorite as we kind of get into the back half of the year?
No, you can't really. I wouldn't want to pick, not the, favorite, it's not like that, but there's 5 of them right there that any of the 5 I think could pull it off. Walraven's right there, a veteran. If you're going to go with a favorite, I'd probably go with Walraven just because he's crafty, 20-some seasons under his belt veteran, and that would be the only reason I'd pick him, just because he's a veteran of that track,
And knowing later in the season maybe to have different approaches to try to preserve a points lead or to race for points instead of trying to race for a win sometimes. What do you see in the 360s as the season has kind of wore on?
Well, in the 360s, you've got Clint Garner, who had an unfortunate DNF on last Saturday night, and Ryan Giles is right there, about 3 points or something separating them, and I think it'll probably come down to one of those 2. And if I was going to pick one, again, nothing against Ryan Giles, but Clint Garner has won, 7 track championships. He knows what to do, how to do it. He's had his bad luck last Saturday night, the DNF. So, but 3 points is nothing when you're they're 1900 and 1984, something like that. So 3 points is not even a percentage, 1 percentage point.
Yeah, and when you talk about 9 races left, all it takes is a couple of weird races to affect a race that close. So as the season gets into this summer months, you talked about the track condition and how dry it's been. It's been a solid 3 weeks since we had any substantial rainfall in the region. What does that do specifically to a track, and for a driver, especially Knoxville regulars who are used to the track feeling one way for the most part, even though we talk about Knoxville kind of giving some different feels and looks on a week-to-week basis. What is the weather doing to the track right now, since it hasn't gotten a chance to get naturally wet for the last few weeks?
Really, they water the track even if it's raining, and Chris Duncan and his crew do a fantastic job. I mean, the track Saturday night was unbelievable. As hot as it was, as windy as it was, high sun, they still had a great racetrack. And part of that was they kind of mixed up the format. They kept the cars off the track a little bit, and that credit goes to John McCoy or whoever. But they just had a great racetrack for the Saturday night World Outlaw race. So Schatz ran away with it, but he runs away with 11 out of the last 12 Knoxville Nationals or whatever it is. So it's not surprising that Schatz won Saturday night. David Gravel was kind of right there, knocking on the door. And Brad Sweet finished 3rd, and then we had 2 of our Knoxville regulars finished 4th and 5th, and Ian Madsen and Brian Brown. In the 360 class, it was rather ironic. The top 10 cars, 7 of them were Marion County drivers and 3 of them were Polk County drivers, because when we lost Clint Garner in that little bit of a bump where he just couldn't continue, normally he'd be right in the middle of the top 10, probably the top 2 or 3, but I just found that kind of odd that seven Marion County drivers and 3 Polk County drivers. Where's the rest of Iowa at? You know,
Right.
come on, guys, let's get in there and mix it up. So it's not just a Marion County, Polk County kind of a fight for the top 10 spots.
Right, especially on a night that gets so much attention with the World of Outlaws there. So that being the case, we talk about the track conditions. When we go into this week, when we get back to normal racing, if you will, with the 3 classes in a typical Knoxville format, what are you looking forward to this week? Is there anything important that you think the people that are thinking about going to Knoxville need to know before they check out the sprint cars?
Well, this Saturday night's Van Wall implement night, and that's, like you said, a normal night. You're going to start seeing probably more cars in the 410 class. You're going to see more cars in the 360 class because some of these people will start coming in now because they're getting ready for either the 360 Nationals or the Knoxville Nationals, and you just see the people kind of, they'll drop in, they'll drop out, you know, kind of in that respect. And we've been averaging about 21, 22 cars in the 410 class, mid-20s on the 360s. So I think the major thing you'll see is a bigger car count, which doesn't really matter. You know, car count's not all about it because they can only put 20 or 22 or 24 cars on the track anyhow for a given feature. But that would be probably the major thing that you'll see is an increase in, and a lot of people like to see strangers come in. Young Selzy from California has been here. Dominic Selzy, his dad was Top Fuel drag racer, Gary Selzy, but he's been in, been out, and in the 360 class again, not really a lot of stragglers, strangers coming in, but they're starting to come in. You'll start seeing some in both the classes. Like I say, just not our regulars.
Well, I'm excited to see kind of how this shakes out as we kind of, as you talked about, reached about the halfway point of the points season. And then, of course, when we get to Nationals time, as that starts rolling around, that's going to definitely put some more eyeballs from around the world on Knoxville Raceway. So, Bill, once again, fantastic talking to you again. Thanks for all the details, and we'll be talking to you again within the next couple of weeks for sure.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks a lot, Emery.
That's Bill McCroskey, our sprint car correspondent here on the Checkered Flag. We're going to talk figure 8 racing when we return. Our first guest of the figure 8s coming up is going to be Jared Thompson. We'll be talking about his career and what he's got going so far this season. Also plug a little bit of what's happening in figure 8s coming up later on in the season when we return on the Checkered Flag right here on the No Coast Network.
Hi, we are Caleb and Carissa. And Kate. And our dad is Boomer. You know the guy that owns Vanderbeek Truck Accessories. If you're in need of truck or SUV accessories, come see our dad. He offers what you need to be riding in style. He'll make your truck cool, and he'll make you smile. Call 628-9350 or stop on the east side of Pella on Oskaloosa Street. Tell Dad the kids sent you.
This is Mike Serig with Vital Ministries, and we are looking forward to this new race season right here in Oskaloosa. We have many options for you race fans to get plugged in on a weekly basis throughout the season. We have a radio broadcast every Sunday morning at 8:30 on KBOE 104.9 FM, and we also send out daily inspirations for both men and women on our vitalministries.org webpage 6 days a week. So don't just sit there and let the summer speed by. Come join us throughout the race season.
Welcome back in. We are live at the Checkered Flag Show here on the Oskaloosa Pizza Ranch on the No Coast Network. I am being joined by my second guest of the evening, Jared Thompson. How's it going, sir?
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, one thing we haven't had a ton, we talked a little bit of figure 8 racing, but we haven't had a figure 8 racer on. So before we tap into the kind of lunacy I think it is to be driving and racing with an intersection in the track, take me through your interest in racing in general from a kid and how you got into the sport actually as a competitor.
Growing up, my dad was a drag racer back 30, 40 years ago. So I've always kind of had interest in racing from that perspective. And then I had some guys around the Sigourney area that were big into figure 8 racing, and they kind of led me into getting started onto it and kind of once I did it once, it was kind of hooked on it and never been able to get away from it yet. So.
Well, that's 13 years, is that about right?
Yep.
All right, that's crazy to think you're still a young guy, so that's,
right.
you know, being able to race for 13 years. What has that experience been like, and what have you noticed? We'll talk about your class jumps here in a second, but just in terms of the knowledge of how figure eights work, because I'm sure from track to track it's a little bit different, but just kind of the knowledge of, I think it's a good time to test this intersection. Maybe it's a good time to lay off. Kind of what has been your growth personally in figure eight racing since you got behind the wheel?
You know, kind of, I've taken a bunch of knowledge from different people from different classes of racing. My current boss is Bill Trimble in Sigourney. He was kind of big into stock car racing for a while in an enduro series, and just kind of taking some knowledge from them and several others. I kind of get some or take some pointers from them and take some of my own bad decisions I've made over the years and kind of learn from everything and put it all together, and kind of took me several years to finally get up to the point of where I should have been at. And you know, once I got up there, then I'm just trying to maintain it. And you know, like you said, with the intersection part of it, you learn there's good times to try to push it, and there's good times where, especially if you're leading the race, that you're better off just to let them go and not cause a problem and get tangled up in the intersection and not finish the race because of it.
Well, I find it very interesting. Now, you've also won quite a few races, it appears. The information I was handed, you don't really even know how many races you won.
No, I don't. When I found out I was going to be on the show, I kind of went around and looked at a bunch of my awards that I have in the house, and I counted up about 90 awards that I have there between track championships and feature runner-ups and just like top 10s and points and feature wins, and it just kind of, and I've given some trophies away because the daughter wanted to give them away, so, and she's got some of them that I don't know where she has, so yeah, I just kind of haven't kept very good records on it for as long as I've been doing it.
As long as you're having fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you started out in stock, and I know I've watched plenty of races at the Southern Iowa Speedway and other local racetracks and everything. So is there much of a difference from your understanding from these classes, and what are the different classes that one can see run in a figure eight night?
Your stock class is a kind of a more basic car. You're limited on what you can do with your motors, and you got to run like certain exhaust manifolds and intake manifolds and stuff to keep the cost down. It's supposed to be a little more entry level into the sport. Then when you jump into the middle class, the pro stock class, you can run the aftermarket intakes and carburetors and put headers on and do the bead blocks for the wheels, and just kind of gives you a good middle ground to try to help with the, you know, get a little more performance out of the cars. And then you jump into the open class, and then it's we got two rules: no aluminum blocks and 10-inch tires. Other than that, anything goes.
So I see that you've gotten experience in all three classes. Is there one that you particularly enjoy a little bit more than the others?
I really had a lot of fun in the pro stock class when I ran it. I was very successful in the pro stock class. That's where I got most of my feature wins and track championships was in it. I had a good time before when I ran the open class, but then I had an injury and kind of had to step out of being an open class car. Then when I switched back to open class again here the last few years was because a friend of mine that actually owns the car, Joe Eisenbeis, I'd sold out of my pro stock stuff, and he called me up and kind of made an offer to me to help him on his car and get to drive it part-time also. So it's made a pretty good team out of the pair of us, and we'll just kind of keep going at it as best we can.
Well, what about this year so far? Obviously, there are 4 local figure eight tracks that we kind of pay attention to that kind of dot us to the east and the north a little bit.
Right.
Where do you typically run them? How often do you run them? And what kind of success have you seen so far by yourself?
The first race around here, we ran the Brooklyn Spring Nationals, they call it, up in Brooklyn, Iowa. And I got second place the first night, and Joe ran the second night and won with it. Then we've been in I think he's finished third in the 3 points races we've had. Then I ran Watch Year over the weekend and picked up my first feature win for the year there. Just kind of went to having some fun, testing some stuff out on the car, and really not don't know what we're going to race there all year long. Just kind of wanted a chance to try some stuff out and see how it'd work, and ended up having a good, successful night out of it.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys definitely have a good system worked out, at least so far. Still plenty of time left. In fact, it seems like when you look at the figure eight schedule, it kind of ramps up here in June and July almost every week, and there's stuff going on. What do you got kind of planned for the rest of this season in the summer?
We got the primarily Joe's running at Brooklyn Raceway for the points. I'm going to run at Sigourney for points all year, and our first race at Sigourney, or the Keokuk County Expo, will be this Saturday night. Then we also have Barn City track that we haven't had a race at yet this year. So we've only got 2 tracks that we've had races at so far this season. Other than that, we go out to Indianola and Adel and race out there occasionally on the bigger tracks. And we just kind of, same thing there, always kind of go out for fun and kind of test and tune, playing around with the car a little bit, and just kind of see what we can do with them guys out there.
Sounds like you guys are having a good time, and success obviously has followed, so that is awesome. It's been nice talking to you. I think we should get you back in after the Sigourney season kind of wraps up, because it kind of hits really hard until you get into the late fall, but we'll definitely try to get back a hold of you, get you back on the show, and talk about what's happened this season. Thanks so much for joining us, sir.
Yep, thank you.
That is Jared Thompson. He is a figure eight driver. We're going to stick with the figure eights when we come back on the Checkered Flag. We're going to have Mark Skirring. He's going to be here to talk about his figure eight odyssey before he was able to worry about running here in the area, and we'll talk to him when we return right after this on the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network.
Call Terry Schroeder Alignment and Towing in Sigourney for your alignment and towing needs at 622-2269 or 641-660-5515. They feature 24-hour towing. You can trust Schroeder's experience with your towing needs. DOT license and insured. All insurance companies welcomed. For alignment, Terry Schroeder uses the Hunter alignment system to get your vehicle back on the road in no time. Terry Schroeder Alignment and Towing, 413 West Clark in Sigourney.
Ottumwa's only locally owned auto parts store, Danny's Auto Supply, not only offers great prices on the quality parts and supplies you need for your vehicle, they also now offer complete car care. From brakes, oil changes to a major overhaul, Danny's Auto Supply has you covered from A to Z with parts, and now a full-time automotive technician on staff. Danny's Auto Supply is located at 827 East Main in Ottumwa. See them for all your auto parts and vehicle needs. That's Danny's Auto Supply, Ottumwa's only locally owned auto parts store.
Exclusive Pizza Ranch, Emery Songer with you on another edition of the Checkered Flag, talking local racing. And figure eights has been something we talked about quite a bit tonight. Let's go ahead and keep talking about it. Mark Skirring is here to talk figure eights. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, you're from Otley, Iowa. This is like I was talking to Jared, this seems crazy to think anybody's going to want to race with an intersection in the middle of the track. So take me through your interest in racing in general as a lad, and then as you kind of got into the business, how you got into the business, and what kind of attracted you to racing in the figure eights.
I started off, my dad was general manager of Challenge, which built sprint car race cars, and kind of grew up at Knoxville my whole life. Always wanted to race, but not, sprint cars not something you just jump right into. And one of my bosses was running figure eights. I was like, well, I'll go check it out. And so we went out, and I was like, well, that looks like a whole lot of fun. And had an old car sitting in the driveway. Mom's like, what are you going to do with that? I said, well, I'm going to put a roll cage in it. She thought I was joking. And I told her, I was like, well, the first race is next week. And she just shook her head. And ever since then, just kind of been after it. A lot of help with friends along the way, just kind of keeping us going. And that's how I got into it. And I had so much fun with it, so we've just kind of stuck with it.
Well, that's an awesome story, because a lot of these guys are just like, oh yeah, Papa raced, and we always went, and we, went to the track, and then he kind of sat me in the car a couple of times, and all that good stuff. This is kind of like, I just want to race. Let's go. Let's go get a car and see what we can do with it. So you've been racing 16 years now, and you've won quite a bit. Take me through kind of the success that you've seen, and how quickly you kind of were able to taste some of that success.
Actually, tasting it quickly is probably the farthest from the first 10 years I raced. I don't think we hardly picked up a win. Just kind of didn't have a lot of money, so had pretty subpar stuff, and kind of was out there to more have fun than to go out there and win. And then about 2011, we bought a new car that was competitive, and ever since then have been pretty much all my stats come from about 2011 and on. So it's been a wild ride. I mean, we've destroyed the car probably 2 or 3 times. We've totaled it 3 times, but we keep rebuilding it, and it just keeps winning.
Well, winning is good. Now, that's when you talk about winning. Where do you typically like to race? Is there a certain track around here that you typically have a little bit more success than others?
Brooklyn's probably one of my most fun tracks. I've had a lot of success there. I've got a couple track championships there and lots of wins and top 2s and stuff like that. But I mean, I enjoy the small tracks. Occasionally we'll go up to Indianola or Adel for the bigger tracks, but I enjoy the small tracks. I like point racing, you know, it kind of keeps things more interesting, keeps you honest every week, and so that's usually where I like to stay.
So when you like the figure eights, obviously, but there's setups that are still involved. You want to make sure that your car is quick. How do you kind of like your car to handle?
I've been very adaptive. Every time we total the car, it acts a little different. So you start trying to, you know, oh, let's adjust this a little bit and stuff. But I tend to like a lot looser race car and kind of lets the driver out a little bit more, and kind of talk to guys with modified chassis and kind of their old style set. And since we go both directions, you can't really set it up for one corner. So just a lot of playing with it and seeing what it does, and whatever little advantage we can get with motors, and because I don't usually run a big motor, so we try to make up for it and putting power to the ground instead of power under the hood.
All right, well, with that being the case, and the fact that you've still been able to enjoy plenty of success with that kind of setup, who are some of the people that have been able to help you out, whether it be sponsors, guys, crew? You know, it's hard to find a one-man show in the sport of racing. So who are some of the people that have helped you along the way, especially here in the recent years since you've been really starting to win a lot of races?
My neighbor Jarrett, he's over at my house every single night. He helps pull multiple cars to the track, because there's nights where I'll actually bring 4 cars to the track for one night, between the front wheel drive, stock, pro stock, open. And then I get the fun part of actually getting to drive all of them, and he gets stuck working on them, and you know, just having my friends helping me out. I mean, pretty much everybody knows we're going racing every weekend. If you want to hang out, you're probably going to get put to work. So, but sponsor-wise, Dingham & Concrete, M&B Farms, Country Inn and Suites, Impella, Breddo Pizza, all those guys. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we couldn't keep going. So.
All right, well, what I like about racing is the fact that community, you know, we get the guys come in here, everybody knows each other, you guys are chatting about things that are coming up. So this season specifically would have kind of been what you've been running so far. What kind of success have you seen, and has there been anything different this year that you've noticed from previous years?
This year started off kind of slow for us, just kind of getting everything put back together. We built another new pro stock just to go play with, and the open car just kind of didn't quite have the luck on our side to start the year off, but once we got going, the last few weeks picked up 3 feature wins in the open, and then even picked up the pro stock and the open both at Watch here a couple weeks ago, and then finished second to Jared last week. So I mean, it's been good point wise, leading points at Brooklyn, leading points at Watch here. So you know, the only 2 tracks that have run. So to me, that's you don't really get a much better start than that.
All right, well, rest of the season, I know Kika County Expo kicking off action this weekend. Do a really good job making sure that there's not multiple tracks running, so everybody gets a chance to run all these tracks. So what do you have coming up for the rest of the season, and what are you looking forward to, especially with a couple more tracks like Sigourney and Barn City that you have an opportunity to potentially run at?
My plans right now are probably to run all 4 of them, full schedules, and you know, maybe occasionally if we have to miss a race, we have to miss a race. But I kind of continue to stay with most of them, try to get the pro stock and our cruiser car out, and kind of makes it more fun, you know, just racing against different guys in different classes, and you know, getting some of the new guys involved. The guy that I'm racing cruiser car with, this is his first year, so just kind of getting him dialed in on how it all works and how to go. It's, you know, that kind of is my most fun, is getting the new guys started and helped out and kind of show them the things that I found out over the years. And
well, you say that, but I asked Jared this, and I haven't asked you this. Since you are actively driving in pretty much every class all the time, what do you like to drive the most?
I still like my open car the most. I probably have the most fun in that one. I like the higher speeds, the more adjustable cars, but dropping down even to the Pro Stock or the Cruiser, it's a completely different group of guys, different set of rules. Just trying to see if we can build a car just as good as a play car rather than, our primary car. So it's a good challenge. It teaches us a lot and stuff that we even take over even to the open car. So that's I'd have to stay with the open though.
All right. Yeah, obviously a lot less rules as we know now. So,
Yep.
But congratulations on a great career so far. I'm interested to see how things go. We'll
Yep.
see if you can't get you back in here on the show as the season wears on, see where things are at. But thanks so much for joining us on the Checkered Flag.
Thank you very much.
Mark Skirring, another figure 8 racer from Otley, who's running the entire circuit from around our listening area in Brooklyn, Wedge, Barnes City, and soon to be Keokuk County Expo Raceway, which is going to be starting this Saturday. We'll take another break. When we come back, we're going to flip over to the regular dirt tracks. We're going to talk sport mods. We have a couple of brothers in here. Scott and Danny Brow will be joining me after this on the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network.
April at Motor and Auto Group in Knoxville means new deals on new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles on the lots. A 2017 Dodge Journey SXT 4-wheel drive is 23% off MSRP and saves you over $5,700. A 2017 Dodge Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 4x4 is 20% off MSRP and saves you over $1,000 when you purchase. Or look good in a 2017 Dodge Charger SXT all-wheel drive, saving you over $6,900 with 20% off MSRP. The dealer that's easy to deal with and hard to beat. Motor and Auto Group in Knoxville.
At Pepsi, we think it's important to celebrate stuff in life.
Like when you text that really cute guy you met at a party on Friday, and he immediately texts you back. You celebrate with an ice-cold Pepsi.
Or your friend turns on the radio, and your absolute most favorite new song just happens to be playing. That calls for a Pepsi, too.
Because when you and your roommate order a pizza, and the delivery guy throws in extra breadsticks no charge?
Break out the Pepsi.
Celebrating 35 years in business, Rick and his crew at RJ Performance have kicked off a year-long sales event with a huge inventory of Polaris, Ranger, and ATV, Indian and Victory motorcycles, and the Hot Rod Autocycle Slingshot. We also carry the famous Yamaha line of ATV and off-road motorcycles, including the new retro street bikes. Tired of watching your friends have all the fun? RJ Performance also has a huge inventory of quality pre-owned UTV, ATV, and street bikes. Stop in today and get in on the fun, or visit us online at rjperformance.com.
Welcome back in. We are on the Checkered Flag Show here on the No Coast Network, and I'm being joined by my final guests of the evening, Scott and Danny Brow. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. We have some important people behind us, so we love taking the time to recognize them and thank them for helping us out.
Well, let's just start there. Let's go, I don't know how much of you guys will have the same teams behind you, but I'll just let you guys tell me exactly who helps you with the cars. I know, Danny, you've been in it a little bit longer, but tell us who has been helping you behind the scenes, some sponsors, and some things that have been able to get you guys going at such a young age here in the sport mods.
Well, I'll start with our very first one we signed on just this last winter was Colfax Tractor, Combine Parts, and Auto Sales. The Bucklands, they do a great job over there. You can come home with a tractor, combine, car, truck, it doesn't matter, and then all the parts for both. So they do a great job. They're down to earth people, and they help us out, so we'd like to help them out back with giving them some recognition.
We just this morning or whatever, when I got a text message from Curtis Vanderwall from just out of the blue saying, would you like to be on the radio tonight? And thank you, Curtis, for getting us on the radio.
Yeah, by the way, big help Curtis Vanderwall is, not only helping us get guests, but any questions we have, he helps us out. So big thanks to Curtis as well.
Yeah, he is a great guy. Scott wore out a clutch at West Liberty, and sure enough, he had one back ordered, and so he just gave it to Scott. And then I forgot my helmet a few weeks back, and so I was wearing his helmet. I think it was two or three Wednesdays ago. So he is a great guy. I can't say enough about him, about how good he is.
I got the text message, and then I wasn't sure on what the plans are. Dad's back home farming, getting that stuff done. The farming pays for the racing and stuff. So I had to make a phone call, and I called Dad. He didn't answer. Right, it was busy. And I called Mom. The line was busy, so I figured Mom and Dad are talking to each other. So I called the home phone. Mom answered, and told her that we could be on the radio tonight, and she said it was go for it. And so then she called Sean Minert at Minert Concrete in Brooklyn, Iowa. And we had known this for about a week now or so, but we never got confirmation. But we finally have a second sponsor from Sean Minert at Minert Concrete. They're going to be partnering up with us here shortly, so that's pretty cool.
And they also did our concrete in our shop, which we think that's second to none because we started out on just a dirt floor and the cars would wobble on the unevenness. And so we really thank them for doing a great job. And also, lastly, we don't have them on the car yet, but we've been talking about maybe some stuff later on down the road we'll put together eventually. But we work for Whitney Ridge Farms and Ag Services, and they let us get off early on Wednesdays to come race. So we really appreciate that. And they're great people. They're looking on expanding here shortly and getting some more help and looking for some more guys to do some more service for. So we also want to give them a big shout out too. They've been a lot of help and very encouraging.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start with how you guys got into it, both really young guys. Let's start with the older of the two brothers. Danny, how exactly did you decide to go into racing, and what drew you to the sport mods?
Well, I think I might have been born in a race car. There's been pictures where I've sat in a race car, and I don't know how many I've seen that I've been in a car, and then we've just had go-karts and bicycles and power wheels and everything. So and just this last winter we have a dirt track in our backyard that we ride with the four-wheelers, and if you get the snowpack down hard enough, it gets really, really slick. And we have a couple friends come over, and it's slide job after slide job, and it's a ton of fun. But there's always been something we've been involved in. We didn't come up through the go-karts and stuff like some of these other competitors our ages have and have that much more experience already. But we've gotten the backyard experience. I think that's gave us a little bit of some edge, I guess, back. So we're hoping that maybe we can get things turned around here shortly. We've been struggling a little bit, but hopefully, we'll get her back on the right track.
All right, so you say that. What drew you guys to the stock or the sport mods?
Well, Dad started out racing years and years ago, and back then they didn't know what they were doing. They started out in a street stock or whatever it was called back then. And eventually Dad rolled the car and got hurt, so my Uncle Wayne jumped in the car and started driving. And I don't know the full story, but eventually my Uncle Wayne and my Uncle Raymond went in their own direction, and Dad went in his own direction, and Dad eventually went into the modifieds. And he loved it. He only had one win in a modified that came from down in Eldon. He got lucky that night, I'll just say that. So then Danny and I did 4-H growing up. Mom made us do 4-H. So we were showing cows, and one day, or coming out of the show ring, it just hit me and realized we do all this work all year round, feeding it, cleaning it, watering it, doing all this work, and we show it for 5 minutes and maybe get $20 and whatever it will get for selling price. And when I walked out of the show ring, I said, that's it. So then Mom got the idea, why don't we get a couple of race cars? It's something we can do as a family, and do it every year after year after year after year. It's safer than what some kids are actually going out and doing. And Mom knows where we are. She knows we're having fun, even if we load the cars with a blown motor, or, well, it's not fun when you blow a motor or tear it up, but at least we're having a little bit of fun doing it. Fun before it gets wrecked or blown up or something. But that's a little bit of how we got to where we are now.
It's probably been the most expensive decision after that 4-H fair that year. So
Mom's over there shaking her head yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked to these guys and the sport mods and the modified. The guys who want to jump to the modified, the first thing they say was just so big increase in the price, but now the same can be said for going from a hobby stock to a stock car to a sport mod. So let's talk about this season. You guys race at Oskaloosa Southern Iowa Speedway. We'll start with Danny. What have you kind of felt so far this year? I know we got rained out a few times early in the season, but what would have been kind of the groove, and how do you like the car to be set up so far this year?
We've really struggled with it this year. made so much improvement last year. We were jumping just outside the top 10, and we're still there now, but that's not good enough for us. We're both competitors, and we want to get up there and we want to beat that 1V car is what we want to do. But yeah, we're right now we're having a traction problem, and we've gone back and forth several times, and tomorrow night, if it works out, I'm going to come back with a whole new package, and I have something a little bit different on Scott's car. We're going to try to test Thursday night at Eldon and go for that fair race. But right now, it's just a little bit of traction is what we're missing, and hopefully we'll find it here shortly.
What about you, Scott, so far?
I've actually had a pretty successful season in my eyes. I think it was about 2 weeks ago we raced Bloomfield, and I made the rookie mistake of I just drove it in way too hard, and she just looped around, and of course the very last car coming by clipped me. It was hard enough, but light enough. It broke my tie rod, and we didn't have any spares, so I was done for the night. But that was the first time all season I finished outside the top 10, so I was pretty happy about that, because the worst I had finished up until that point was 9th. And even though the car, I hit the gas and it won't get off the corner, I was still pretty happy about it. And the Bloomfield and Eldon tracks are what I'm trying most to hit every race, because last year I think we missed like 2 or 3 races, and I got 6th in the points there, where they combined the points there. So I said missing 2 races or 2 or 3 races, I want to try and hit every single one of them, see as well as I can do, and just see how well I can finish in the points. And so far, last I checked, I was sitting 3rd with the best finish of a 6th or a 5th or something like that. So I'm like, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't plan on winning it. I just plan on getting a good top 5 place. I want to take a banner home this year. That would be really cool.
Well, that's what we talked to the figure eights guys. They love that points racing idea, because it puts your whole season in perspective instead of just one night going for a win. But it sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun. You guys are still very young guys, enjoying some success. We'll get you on later on this season, kind of see where you're at as you continue to try to improve. But thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely have you on later on this season.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right, that is Scott and Danny Brow. We'll take another break, come back, wrap things up right here on the Checkered Flag on the No Coast Network.
Hi, I'm fake Sarah McLaughlin. When was the last time you really gave your car some love? Has your car been the victim of neglect over the winter? Does it have old French fries in places that no one should ever have old French fries? Then wait no further. Pick up the phone and give Jeff at Vanderlinden Detailing a call right now. Give your vehicle the love it deserves, a full inside and outside detail. Make a difference today. Call Jeff at 641-780-0119 or follow Vanderlinden Detailing on Facebook.
Race fans, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum is proud to announce our Salute to Champions Sammy Swindell exhibit in our museum this season from June 1st through October 1st. Stop in and view 6 of the sprint cars that Sammy has driven during his illustrious sprint car career, and our exclusive Salute to Champions Sammy Swindell t-shirts and posters to match Sammy's race cars on display will be available inside our museum store. That's the Salute to Champions Sammy Swindell exhibit beginning June 1st and running through October 1st. Only at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum in Knoxville.
Celebrating 35 years in business, Rick and his crew at RJ Performance have kicked off a year-long sales event with a huge inventory of Polaris, Ranger, and ATV, Indian and Victory motorcycles, and the Hot Rod Autocycle Slingshot. We also carry the famous Yamaha line of ATV and off-road motorcycles, including the new retro street bikes. Tired of watching your friends have all the fun? RJ Performance also has a huge inventory of quality pre-owned UTV, ATV, and street bikes. Stop in today and get in on the fun, or visit us online at rjperformance.com.
Welcome back one final time here on the Checkered Flag Show right here on the No Coast Network at the Oskaloosa Pizza Ranch. I'd like to thank all of our guests tonight, Scott and Danny Brow. We also talked to Bill McCroskey, our sprint car correspondent, Jared Thompson, and Mark Skurring, figure eight racers from around the area. Thanks for them for joining us. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I also want to plug what we have coming up tomorrow night, Southern Iowa Speedway pre-race show, as always, with Jeremy Fox. Going to be starting at 6 p.m. on 104.9 FM KBOE, KBOEradio.com. That'll be followed after a little bit of a hiatus, about an hour break. You're going to hear lap-by-lap, turn-by-turn coverage of all of the racing action, heats, and features at the Southern Iowa Speedway, so be sure to check that out. 104.9 FM KBOE and KBOEradio.com and the KBOE mobile app coming up tomorrow evening. Coming up on Friday and Saturday, the Eddyville Raceway Park
Park going to have 2 nights of racing, family fun night, and they're going to have Midnight Madness once again starting at 10 p.m. on Friday night. And then on Saturday, they're going to have a non-points race. The gates are going to be opening at 1 p.m. for that. And then on Saturday, we have 2 things, Knoxville Raceway and the figure eights at the Keokuk County Expo, the first race of the season at Sigourney. Be sure to check those out as well, with the hot laps in Knoxville starting at 6:45, hot laps 6:30 at the Keokuk County Expo. That'll do it for our entire crew. We appreciate you for joining us. I'm Emery Sauger. This has been the Checkered Flag here on the No Coast Network.
This has been the Checkered Flag on your station for racing. 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com. The Checkered Flag has been presented by Mahaska, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, Sigourney Body Shop, Danny's Auto Supply, Quality Car Wash, Morton Buildings, Motor Inn Auto Group of Knoxville, Vanderlinden Detailing, Schroeder Alignment and Towing, Vital Ministries, RJ Performance, and Vanderbeek Truck Accessories. This has been the Checkered Flag on 104.9 FM KBOE and all over the world at KBOEradio.com. This has been a production of No Coast Network. This has been the Checkered Flag on your station for
Celebrating 35 years in business, Rick and his crew at RJ Performance have kicked off a year-long sales event.